I'm so excited to introduce our keynote speaker. Heather Hummel Gallagher is a GCDS alum, class of 1981. She was Heather Ramsey back then, and her father was a legendary English teacher here at Country Day. And now Heather is following in Dad's footsteps, as Wally Ramsey was one time himself the GCDS graduation speaker. Miss Gallagher is an author, a seascape photographer, a ghostwriter, an avid traveler, and the owner of 2 black labs. Miss Gallagher attended the University of Virginia, where she graduated with high distinction. As a ghostwriter, Heather has penned over a dozen books for philanthropists, public figures, politicians, and business leaders. Heather is a featured blogger in the arts and culture section of the Huffington Post. Television, print, and radio coverage for her clients' books include The Today Show, Publishers Weekly, USA Today, and The Washington Post. Her award-winning books include Gracefully, which won the Mature Media Award and Merit Award, Whispers from the Heart, a New York Book Festival Prize winner, and notation as a top book for grown-ups by Publishers Weekly. Heather's second career as a land and seascape photographer. In that work, she's been represented by the Agora Gallery in Chelsea District of New York in 2015. In my 17 years as a school's head, we've continued the tradition of having an alum come back and share their wisdom with our graduates. I have no doubt that in 20 years from now, when I come here with my walker, that one of these fine 14 will be addressing the graduating class of 2041. So please join me in welcoming home Miss Heather Hummel Gallagher.
Thank you, Head of School, Mr. Rohde, faculty, parents, and most especially the class of 2021. It truly is an honor to be back here after my own graduation 40 years ago from the 9th grade school. My father gave the same commencement speech 36 years ago. And amazingly enough, my younger brother, Gus, found a copy of that speech on an old cassette player. I was able to get a cassette recorder from Amazon and send it to him, which brought it into the digital age. So a few weeks ago, I was able to listen to it. And in that speech, my father dispensed avuncular gumdrops and quoted David Lee Roth's "Hummala Beebala Zeebala Boobala, Hummala Beebala Zoobala Bop," which your parents would get, and I know you guys won't. And he did bet me that I wouldn't be able to pull that off. However, in all seriousness, it is a great honor to be here, and especially speaking to you graduates, because you are trailblazers. I know this because I've been a trailblazer my whole life. When I graduated from the University of Virginia, the program that I was in was also in its second year, and there were only 12 of us graduating. Imagine a university with over 20,000 students and my parents finding out that they didn't have to sit through hundreds of names. It was only 12 of us. And the other example of me being a trailblazer was in the publishing industry. Back when my mother and I published our book, Gracefully, this was in 2007, there were only 2 million books on Amazon at the time. There are now over 50 million. At the time, literary agents had a rejection rate of 96%. So we were amongst the 4% to be accepted with just one book proposal that I pitched to one agent. So it really was a Cinderella type story when it came to publishing. But that was then and this is now, and a lot has changed in the publishing industry, as you can imagine. For example, our editor at McGraw-Hill back then went on to become a priest. So if that doesn't tell you how the publishing industry has changed, I don't know what will. Not only that, as you know, books now are on devices, whether it's on our tablets or our iPhone or a computer. They're no longer as popular between covers, whether hardcover or paperback. So I've seen a lot of changes, and those are technology advances that you students get to benefit from, especially not having to carry heavy backpacks around like your parents did. The third and earliest example of me being a trailblazer is actually in the medical realm. No, I didn't become a doctor or anything, but I've been a patient my whole life. I was born without the pulmonary valve, which is pretty important to a good heartbeat. But at the time, the doctors didn't know what to do with me. So they literally handed me over to my parents and said, come back in 9 years when we can do a surgery then. Sure enough, it was my 3rd grade year here at Greenwich Country Day School that I had my first of 3 open heart surgeries. The other 2 followed when I was 25 and 49 years old. But that 3rd grade year, what I remember most was the students coming over. My 3rd grade class came over to our house at 430 Old Church Road, where I was recovering, and sang to me. So there I was up in my bedroom looking down at this sea of 3rd graders singing to me. And while I don't remember the song, I remember the gesture, and quite often it is the gesture that people remember, not the words. However, being a trailblazer doesn't always mean going from point A to point B. In fact, as Oscar Wilde put it, to expect the unexpected shows a thoroughly modern intellect. The advice I'm about to give you guys might not go over very well with your parents, but bear with me as I dispel the myth that quitters never win. And I just have 3 examples for you. The first one was when I went off to boarding school. From 9th grade at Greenwich Country Day, I picked a small private all-girls school in Connecticut. By December, I realized I made a grave mistake. Boarding school was not for me. In fact, somebody 2 years older than me was telling me to shut the lights off at 10 o'clock. No. So I devised a plan for my great escape. I went to the infirmary and told the nurse I wasn't feeling very well. She put a thermometer in my mouth and left the room momentarily. While she was gone, I stuck the thermometer to the radiator. Presto, fever induced. What followed next was my mom showing up in our old Chrysler station wagon, yes, with the wood panels down the side. While she was inside signing me out for the week while I could go home to our doctor, I was outside loading all of my belongings into the back of the station wagon. It wasn't until halfway home when she looked in the rearview mirror and saw the packed station wagon with all my things. And she turned to me and said, "You're not going back, are you?" And I said, "No." I then transferred to Greenwich High School, and I loved Greenwich High School. I took a photography class there that opened my eyes to cameras and light and what would be my talent. Eventually, I went on to publish 2 books on photography. So for me, leaving that boarding school was exactly what I needed to do. The other example was I didn't learn my lesson. I went to a college that was also a small private arts college. After about 2 years there, I realized that I was not cut out to be a child psychologist. So I later transferred to the University of Virginia, where I got my degree in Bachelor of Interdisciplinary Studies. The concentrations were in English and secondary education. So had I not left that small private college, I would not have gotten a degree from one of the most prestigious schools in the country. But even more so, I really excelled as a student there and learned my potential in other ways. So that's not to say that small liberal arts colleges aren't for some people. Charlie Thompson. My parents went to Rollins College. They met there over 60 years ago, are still happily married. Not only that, my 2 brothers went to Rollins College. They got degrees in communication. One of them went on to be a 4-time Emmy producer for ESPN, and he is now a director at Full Sail University right there in Winter Park. The other brother has been a producer for NBC from California to Texas and he's now in Charlotte, North Carolina. So certainly small liberal arts colleges are meant for people. So the whole point is you can be what you want to be. The next thing I did, the next example of quitting, was when I became an English teacher. I kept telling my students you can be what you want to be, but I wasn't heeding my own advice. After a few years of teaching, I realized I really wanted to be a writer. Going back to that 3rd grade year, when I sat at home for 2 months recovering from open heart surgery, I knew even then that I wanted to be a writer. So I left teaching, and within 6 months, I had the book deal with McGraw-Hill and completed my first novel. Both of those went on to be award-winning books. And since then, over the last 15 years, I've ghostwritten books for philanthropists, public figures, and business leaders. Those books have been what really helped me develop as a writer. So had I not left teaching English, I would not be the award-winning novelist and ghostwriter that I am now. So whether you're going off to a small college or a big university this fall, I know that you guys have opportunities that your parents and faculty and even I didn't have at your age. Chris Benincasa, you're going to Lehigh University. You could invent the next robot that lands on Mars. Olivia Hu, you want to be in filmmaking, correct? That industry has changed a lot, just like the publishing has, and I know that you can help be a trailblazer there as well. So whether you were in the math class or you participated in the production of Into the Woods, all of you have a wonderful future ahead of you. So my last words of advice to you is don't be afraid to quit what wasn't meant for you. Follow your dreams, be the trailblazers, and write your own story. I look forward to hearing of your successes in the future. Thank you.